built anew. Spirit lingers torn in two. Metal fingers grip my heart so cold. Fossil fuels to slavery, political duplicity. Every great commodity's been sold. Slave to the new black gold. There's a heartbeat under my skin. Search my electric soul for the hidden man within. Your secret science conquers nature's cruel laws, but inside your wires lie a million mortal flaws. Electric sleep, I dream inside my honeycomb. I stay alive inside my hive of skin and chrome. Broken body built anew. Spirit clinkers torn in two. Metal fingers grip my heart so cold. Fossil fuels to slavery, political duplicity. Every great commodity's been sold. Slave to the new black gold. There's a heartbeat under my skin. Search my electric soul for the hidden man within. Slave to the new black gold. There's a heartbeat under my skin. Search my electric soul.
Hello, we are live. So, it doesn't look like there's many people watching at the moment, but for those of you who might be watching the VOD, welcome. Today, we are going to be painting a little bit of a mini for one of my players. And this is a human monk named Dame, and she is quite the fiery redhead. And the previous model, which I have actually already painted, here's a little bit of a preview here, I'm really happy with. However, the arm broke, and also I decided to start increasing the height of the character. I want characters that were a little bit bigger. They just feel like they work a little bit better on the tabletop. So, anyway, we're listening to some Miracle Sound today. One of my favorites. He's been so kind as to let anybody stream with his music behind, which is always nice. So, let's get into it. I think what we're going to start with is hair, because that's the part that I think, on this model specifically, is probably the most prominent feature, is that big piece of red hair down the back, and then kind of the black attire. So we're going to start with the red hair, and if we can get that right, then I would say that we're about 80% successful with this model. So, yeah, let's get at it. So, I am definitely going to start with a more mellow base, probably a red with some brown in it as a base coat. Then we're going to start layering up red on top of that. And that's really going to help give it some rich body while not making it too bright and letting those highlights come out. So we're going to start with a little bit of red here. What is this? Dragonborn red. I am currently using some Warpainter paints for some Warpainter paints that are based off of D&D stuff. So we're gonna see what we can do here. If you're curious, I printed out my palette. I'm a bit of a 3D hobbyist, or 3D printing hobbyist, and I like making my own stuff when I can. So let's see, what brush are we going to be using? We're probably going to be using this one. And we are definitely going to be wanting this thinned down a little bit. I'm definitely going to be using some more, definitely going to be using some more layering techniques today. Never claimed to be good, but I always like learning. So we're going to be watering some of this down a little bit. Make sure it mixes nicely. And yeah, we'll see where this goes. I'll be checking in with chat. No, I think I need to move my setup just a little bit here. We're going to move this over here. Yeah, there we go. I'll be checking in with chat if everyone's wanting to talk, but once I get into it, well, this is probably also going to turn into a time-lapse VOD, so I may not be talking the whole time. But I will be checking chat, so if you want to hang out, ask some questions, or anything like that, I will definitely be here. All right. So, let's see what color we can start with here. See what mix we can get. So it looks like that brown is really taking in that red. Lighten that up just a little bit. Since this is the first layer, I don't need it too bright because I'm going to be brightening it up with its own layers later. So, and considering that this is our, yeah, okay, yeah, let's start this off. So I printed this out a while ago. I just haven't gotten around to this. But lots of great detail on the hair. This model's from HeroForge. And so I primed it a while ago, but just haven't gotten around to painting it. Decided to give it a go today. Yeah. Ooh. Thank you, Captain Margaret. First chat of the day. That was awesome. Thank you. No, I am actually not painting her on the base because I find it easier to paint a model first and then base them. And that's what I've started doing. So I'll print the base off first. Yeah, I'll print the base off, or excuse me, I'll paint the model first, and then I'll do the base later, and then attach them later. Just makes it a little bit easier all the way around. Man, I'm liking this base coat already. It's a nice kind of auburn, maybe. I don't know, auburn, chestnut? Not exactly sure. Get some more red in here. I like testing new stuff out, and so this is a new style of me mixing paint. Normally I just mix up a whole batch of it, but I would routinely end up doing too much and throwing a lot of paint out. And so having these kind of piles of paint that you kind of mix as you go is kind of new for me. But speaking of bases, that's one of the things that I want to get better at, because a good base can really make a model pop. And I need to get better at doing random bits of basing. So as you can see right here, it's still a little bit wet. Let's see, can we get a focus here? Come on, camera. Yeah. Are you gonna go? Eh. Cheap old webcams. Gotta love them. Anyway. Got a good value here so far. But yeah, good bases can really make things pop, and I really like good bases on my stuff. But they aren't my strong suit yet. Honestly, there's very few things that are my strong suit, but it's fun. Miracle of Sound, who we're listening to today, does a lot of great kind of meme songs. Yes, Captain, you can really ground the mini with a good bass. Thank you for that. Thank you. Captain Margaret there is one of my players in said campaign. There's a lot of good puns that go on in our campaign. So I think what we got going on here is a good base layer. This is going to give us yes. This is probably going to be the most base layer here, and we're just going to start building up the red. But we're going to try to almost glaze it up. We're going to make sure our red is nice and thin. And we're just going to slowly build up a more saturated red color so that all the highlights are basically that pure red. But there's a nice oh man, lost my train of thought. Not gonna lie, it's not the easiest to pay attention, paint, and talk at the same time. But yeah, we're just gonna be building up layers of red so that the actual highlights are that full red and in a nice glaze. Getting some nice bright highlights. There we go. I think we're basically good there. And I'm thinking behind, kind of in the recesses here behind, I'm going to be a little bit messy because we've got some pretty strong like blacks and such that are going to be covering this. And also just kind of going this heavier brown is, I don't know, it might lend to some diegetic lighting. I don't know. We'll find out. Diegetic, for those of you that don't know, is whenever something, a part of the piece, is kind of taken into account. So, like, a diegetic UI in a video game would be a user interface that is kind of represented in the game world. I think one of the most famous ones are the Dead Space health bars behind the main character's back. And other ones is like diegetic music in films where the score is from the, like, coming from a radio or something like that. So diegetic lighting inside of a mini would basically be saying, hey, when you put lighting into the actual mini itself, as opposed to letting natural lighting cast as shadows and you actually paint in shadows, that would be a little bit more some diegetic lighting. Okie dokie. Well, let's see what we got here. I'm gonna clean up a little bit of this mixing spot here, and see if we can start getting some red glaze going. So this is a new technique for me. Saw a video about it and wanted to give it a try. I did something similar with the last one, but I'm going a little bit more aggressive with this one. Oh, and I already had some of the paint wear off. That's not good. So the main point is to get your your glaze color and mix it with whatever you're looking for. So we're going to get some red in here. And we're going to really make sure we water it down. Like really water it down. We're talking like 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 water to paint. Get this real thin. And I'm just repeating what I was told, so we'll see how this goes. Then we're going to start with our coolest color, or darkest color here. And then we're going to start building it up by adding more red. So we're going to take a little brown, darken this up, and that brown goes a long way. But this is our first glaze color. And even now, I feel like that is still too thick. So we're going to get some more water in here. And the next step, there we go, is to make sure that we actually don't glob. So we want to make sure that there's paint in the brush, but not that doesn't pool. And actually, I think I may even have a little bit too much there. And then what we start doing, we start putting on incredibly thin layers onto the ridges that we want to lighten up, leaving all those crevices and such. And we want this paint very thin so it glazes on. And we also want so little paint in our brush that it nearly dries instantly when we put it on. Now that is what we're got going on here. And at least the way that I'm doing this here, it's almost like a high effort way of doing a dry brush, where I'm literally just painting on every single highlight, which, I mean, is more effort, but you also make it look better. So, not sure how well you can see, but you've already got some better highlights in here. And most of this is already almost dry again. And so, what we do, load up our brush again. And we start hitting those highlights again. Now I have started to learn how to do hair a little bit better. Red hair specifically. I still haven't figured out how to do blonde. Blonde's a pain. But with red hair, I found you can kind of do two different approaches. If you want a real like fire engine red hair, you base coat in orange. And at least what I found is you base coat in orange, and then after you base coat in orange, you go with red, but you darken your red with a purple, and that gives you a little bit of a truer color in the shadows. However, that's if you want to get this big fire engine red. If you are looking for more of a, how would you call it? Something a little bit more like what I'm doing here. You want, with more of a brown undertone, you really want to do base coat in the brown, and then build up a highlight with the red. Now I'm actually having some really bad habits here of letting what I've painted hit the table and knock off some paint. but that's all right. I love this song. A lot of Miracle Sound's early stuff is really funny, very memey. I mean, his later stuff got more serious. Well, actually, he's had serious stuff all throughout, but he definitely has moved away from the memey stuff. Okay, there we go. So we've built up some really nice highlights here. That was only 2 layers. And so we're just going to grab some more red and make a lighter area here. Remember, we want this nice and wet. This isn't quite the pure red yet. I'm still mixing some in. As I said, you want paint in your brush, but you don't want it glopping out. You want it very, very thin. Yeah, there we go. And now, I really want to just hit these highlights. I'm using the side of my brush here, kind of letting the natural geometry pull the paint off. In fact, actually, I think this may even be still too thick. There we go. Yeah. And the point here is to just put it on thin layer after thin layer. And as I'm seeing here, I think my my brown is a little bit too saturated in the recesses. So I'm gonna go back to this earlier color. Still pretty thin down. I'm just gonna dab into these recesses, redden them up a little bit, kind of do some corrective coloring here, and also help blend the brighter reds into the darker reds and the browns. Like I said, this is all about glazing, just very thin layers every time. Let it dry. It's probably going to dry nearly instantly. There we go. Now I think I may have put some of this on a little bit too thick, so I'm gonna be getting a little bit more. Of this bright red, but after I let it dry a little bit, so I'm just gonna set this down. I'm actually gonna show a little piece that I've done earlier. Where did I put her? Alrighty. So, when I was talking about the fire engine red hair, this is what I've got here. So this is an elf that I did. As you can see, her hair is much brighter red, and if my camera will focus, there we go. You can see the low lights are more of a purplish color, and the highlights are very red. And this camera does not like to focus. There we go. If only I had a manual focus. You know what? I bet. A piece of paper would do this so much better. Hey, look, something to focus on. Hey, it is working a little bit better now. So yeah, anyway. Oh, nope, it's decided not to work again. Autofocus. Bane of my existence. But, as I was pointing out, we're not going for that fire engine red. We're going for a little more muted red. It looks like some of this has started to dry up enough. So let's start in. Oh, thanks about the music. Yeah, let me turn the music up a little bit more. We've got a little bit of a quiet song. There we go. That looks pretty good. Let me know if you can hear the music again. So yeah, we're gonna load up the brush. And let's start hitting these highlights again. Now I would say this is a fairly patient, well, this is a style that requires a lot of patience because as you can see, I've already painted over the same pieces like, 5 times now? But what it does is you can just get this way more dynamic look of this slow buildup of color. And it ends up turning out real nice. I did a similar style the first time I did this model, but still nothing. Well, I've got stuff coming through on my end. Try that. Yeah, I'll try and get the music sorted out. I'm not sure if you've been able to see, but as we've been going, I've been doing less and less in the recesses and more on the highlights. And kind of on those ridges. I've actually been neglecting the top of her head here a little bit. Okay. Music's pretty faint, but you can hear it now. Cool. You know what? We're just gonna peg that up as high as it can go, and hopefully that's good enough. So I think the very top of her head is definitely gonna have to get some bright red, but we've done a pretty good job of building this up now. So I think it's time to thin out this pure red. That's still too thick. Thin out this pure red, and we're going to start hitting just the very tops of these ridges. That'll give us a nice dynamic range and highlight. There we go. Can I just say that I really appreciate any artist who releases their music for anybody to use while streaming is just the best. Because trying to get good music while you're streaming that's not copyrighted is a pain. And you can get yourself into a lot of trouble if you don't do it properly. In fact, that's been a big problem on Twitch recently. There we go. Now this is pretty vibrantly red right now. But we'll see how well that actually stays. Now I haven't really done much around the face here, so I'm just gonna put a layer or two right around the head so that we can get a good sense. Oh yeah, that's looking good. And you know, we can back off a little bit. Something's a little bit too red, we can go back to a previous color. If there's too much dynamic range, like in here, I want that a little bit lighter. We can throw in these lighter reds that I've already mixed. And just leave the darker stuff when needed. now we just kind of feather it around, see what we got here. And that's just kind of what you do. Something that took me a little bit of time to learn, a little bit of dry brushing practice is you really want to work with your model, not against it. So let the natural rises in the model to catch your paint, you know, be more aggressive with darker colors, and then build up highlights using the natural rises. There we go. I really want the top of her head to be very red. So I'm putting on the pure red on top pretty thick, but letting it dim as we go further down. And again, with these very thin layers, you can just bring up an area that you think is too dark just by putting a little bit extra in there. There we go. And there you have it. There is some absolutely gorgeous red hair, if I do say so myself. With just with some layers, nothing fancy, no crazy color theory, just a little bit of red, a little bit of brown, and a little bit of patience, and a lot of thin down paints. There we go. So as long as you know the color theory, you can really make that work, really make that shine. So we'll see if I can get a close-up here. Oh, look at that. Still nice and shiny, but you've got some good color in there. Alrighty, so let's take a look at what's next. So I'm following a color pattern that I've already done with her, and I want to do any form of black. So you can see here, any form of black I want to do last. Because black is really saturated and I can be really precise with it. So I think, yeah. I'm trying to decide if I do brown or black first. I think we're going to do the browns, maybe some of the reds. So, you know what? We're going to do this kind of red flare on her cape first. Her hip cape of awesome. So, let's start with that. So, this is all going to be edge highlighted in, or edged in black. So, we can be a little messy here. And brown is going to be a darker color, so we can also be messy here. So, we don't want a super crazy bright red on here. So we're actually probably going to use this little bit of brown red that we mixed here as our base, and then we're just going to highlight a little bit with that pure red. So this has already been thinned out nicely, so we're just going to throw on this very thin layer. I should probably rinse out my brush. And I'm willing to be a little bit more aggressive here. Going a little bit faster. As I said, we'll be able to clean this all up later with darker colors. might be asking, hey, this looks kind of gray under this reddish exterior. I'd say you're right. However, give it a couple more layers, and that's going to help a lot. This is from BioShock. I think BioShock 2. Maybe 1. This song, that is. And it was one of the defining songs for me for Miracle of Sound. A Gavin Dunn. A national treasure of Ireland, as far as I'm concerned. Go. All right. It's taking his time trying to dry here. But we're just trying to build up the ink. And this is the kind of the slow and tedious part. Because you're just putting on very thin layer after very thin layer. The benefit is that it doesn't, let's see. The benefit is that it's not, you keep it from getting like blotchy and streaky from putting on your paint too thick. But it just takes a little while to dry, which is the not fun part. But we'll just take this opportunity to drink some orange juice. Listen to a song about Minecraft. There we go.
To think of offices and motorways and bills when I'm tunneling through oceans, beaches and cascading hills. These creepers make me run away, these spiders give me chills, but I feel good 'cause I've been mining.
Moo indeed, Captain. Moo indeed.
Hey, 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 I've been mining all day long. I could barely drag myself away to sing this song. Hey, 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 my castle's super strong, and I feel good 'cause I've been mining all day long. That's right. Now I hope that they got Minecraft up in heaven when I die. I'll be logging into God's great super server in the sky. His frame rate's in the hundreds and his settings are all high. We got arrows, food, and diamonds in an infinite supply. Hey, 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 I've been mining all day long. I could barely drag myself away to sing this song. Hey, 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 my castle's super strong, and I feel good 'cause I've been mining all day long. I feel good 'cause I've been mining all day long. Yeah, I feel great 'cause I've been mining all day long.
Moo. I love that song. Alrighty, now that we've got our musical interlude taken care of, and this layer that I kind of oversaturated, we're gonna try to get some more layers on here. And what I did previously is I just had too much paint, too much liquid on my brush. It was taking too long to dry because it really should be drying pretty quick.
I live in the shadows, I work in the shade. I came in a mask, a lonely keeper's crusade. Can you tell me I'm not insane? Sometimes I get this feeling about the law I'm dealing. Am I letting my reason wane? Have I been forsaken?
Also, Gavin had a lot more puns in his music early on.
I guess the joke's on me.
And I love a good pun, so. Nice benefit. Okay, so let's see if we can highlight this just a little bit. This isn't the most prominent part of the model, so we don't have to go super crazy. But it'd be nice to have a little bit of kind of brighter red in around to highlight what's going on here. And I'm sure it's pretty hard to see on camera, but this is lightening up ever so slightly, each layer at a time. Trying to focus on the ridges, places where light would catch naturally. I'm actually trying to put some around the edges and rim here because it's gonna be low lit by black on the edge, and so I actually want some of the brighter parts to be right adjacent to that black. I should have damped that off first. There we go. And if there's not enough dynamic range in here, I can just go back and maybe make a darker red and paint it into the recesses. Take the lighter red and try to exaggerate some of the highlights even more, depending on what we're going for. There we go, that's the start of the base there. Now, her character color is pretty rich, and so I'm thinking of, yeah, instead of highlighting the brown with more of a tan, I'm thinking of highlighting the brown with a little bit more of a red, and that would keep the whole color palette kind of tied together. So we are going to get some of this brown, thin it up a little bit, and we are going to start doing the rest of the hip cape. This brown might be a little bit. May need a little bit more there. There we go. The classic advice is 2 thin coats, which I'm basically doing multiple incredibly thin, like chiffon sheer coats, but I'm willing to lay some of these down a little bit thicker, especially if they're the base coat. I don't exactly know where all the black's gonna go, but the nice thing about black is it covers a multitude of sins. So I can be a little messy around the edges. Also, last time I did this model, I had not learned nearly as much about layering up colors and stuff like that. And so I think this is a good opportunity for comparisons and learning from trying to apply some of the things I've learned since I last did this. There we go. Now let's work on this lower section. As you can see, this brown just covers up any red that's spilled over real easy. Oh, that was a mistake. Or happy little accident. I don't know. This one just needs to get erased. I didn't dab off my brush, and so there's a lot of leftover color in a gap here. So I'm actually just going to use it to refill my brush as I go ahead. Now definitely here, we want multiple layers, multiple coats. Because I primed in red, or excuse me, I primed in gray just to give a nice middle tone that I could work from in both directions. I have Hi Magaru. See, how are you supposed to know I was streaming? I mean, I did post a story on Instagram saying that I was. But that actually brings up a good point. I am trying to be streaming on Tuesdays around 1. That's going to be my time that I'm going to try to show up. And I am definitely going to be trying to I'm going to be trying to make like highlight reels and such out of this. This is probably going to be turned into a time lapse with some more commentary. And I'm going to see if I can work on that tomorrow. So the hope is 1 video, 1 stream each week. And see how I like that. So let's see. Makaru, who is actually the recipient of this model. So how do you... So you do a brown base and the black on top of it? So the... unless I am... So if we look at the original piece here, yeah, we are doing blocking in our color first of brown, and then we will do black edging. And so I'm doing all the brown and red first, and then we're going to do the black edging. Partly because I don't know, I like edging with the more saturated colors. It's really precise, and if you make a mistake, it's really hard to fix. But I've found it's easier than trying to do multiple layers of a less saturated color. Multiple layers of less saturated color to cover up something else. So I like being messy with the lighter colors and then cleaning it up later with a more saturated, darker color. Oop, I missed a spot over here. Let's see. Yeah, I was actually planning to go and pick up the original model this morning, but time got away from me. Ended up eating way too much food and watching a stream instead. So I'm going on, I think this is the second, maybe it's the third layer on this top piece here. And now you can't even tell that this was base coated in brown, really. Actually, I think this is a part of the hair, so I'm actually gonna just snag a little bit of this. Boom. Unfortunately, Makaru, you missed the part where I was doing the red hair, which I am actually very proud of. I've learned a lot about layering and was successfully able to build up red highlights off of a red-brown base to make kind of that more richer auburn hair. And now that it's dried some more, I may even try to do some more bright red highlights. Maybe even mix a little orange in with the red, just to give it that that extra little lighter pop for the very like brightest highlights. Then I have one more layer to put on over here. There we go. So we've got some good color blocked in here. And also, if I remember correctly, the pants are brown? Yeah, pants are brown too. So let's start blocking that in too. Ooh, do I want to tackle doing tattoos on the back of her arms? Whew. I am not that great at freehanding those, but they would definitely be something I would do after I put the flesh color in. So, I don't know. Maybe that's something for future self to worry about. Me for dead. Excuse me while I sing along too, Gavin. I will save you my attempts at metal screams, however. So something I think, the one thing I'm going to change is I've really liked the difference of highlighting brown into a red. I think it makes for a really slick color highlights. And makes for some really slick color highlights. And keeps the piece really rich. Yeah, okay. We have the official confirmation. Brown highlighted into red it is. I remember. I can't just dip my paintbrush in and then go straight to the model. And actually, in all this underside stuff, I could probably be a little more aggressive. Spread this out a little bit faster. There we go. Also, one thing that was nice is that this model printed a lot cleaner. The previous model, I had to do a bunch of green stuff to get a good like hem and trim going, but by printing this at like it's about 20% bigger size, and because I end up leaning, instead of printing it straight up like this, I end up printing it like leaning back like this, and that really really helps with how the supports go. I end up getting a much cleaner, much more stable model. And all the stress points and break points are going to be different, and so hopefully this will be a more structurally sound piece. Because, I mean, you're playing with these, you're moving around the table, and sometimes they get knocked into things and stuff like that, so it's nice to have an actual stable construction. Alright. While I'm looking at this brown, this may not actually be the brown that I ultimately want to go with. I mean, it's going to be a great base coat for whatever I end up going with, but I'm almost wanting a darker brown. Oops, come back here. Go. It's areas like this where it really helps to speed things up, because you don't have to be precise, and if you spend as much time doing high detail work like I was doing before on these big open areas, you're going to be here all day. And I've got 3 hours, so. I don't know. This is starting to dry a little bit darker. Yes, sometimes they are grabbed by toddlers. Good to think about. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry a little bit. I'm gonna go take a look at my other browns to see what I've got. Okie dokie. The only thing I got is this this owlbear brown, which, if I remember correctly, is more on a gray tone. And it's not my favorite. It's not as rich. I might use it for... Yeah, man, that's not my favorite. So yeah, we'll probably stick to this. I think it's a chocolate brown. No, a flat brown that I have here. It's time to swap our paper towel here. Alrighty. I have to say, thanks for hanging out with me in chat. It's always so much easier to have a running conversation when you actually have someone to converse with. Let's see. Okay, that's mostly dry. What do we got here? So right now I have a completely dry brush here, and I'm just going through into the nooks and crannies where maybe some paint pooled where I wasn't wanting it to, and it's not drying super fast, and I'm just pulling it back out so it dries faster. Okay. Alright, so we're actually doing pretty good when it comes to like blocking out colors. I think the last one we're actually going to be doing now is skin tone. Yay, my favorite. As you can tell, I am super confident and excited about doing this. So I've got two skin tones that I work with. I've got fair skin and rosy skin, and neither of them work the way that I want to. So I end up having to mix them, and it's a pain. So I think a basic 1-to-1 is what's needed, but it's very thin, not very opaque. Come on. Man, apparently this doesn't want to come out. Oh, I have a paint clog. Are we good? Ooh, this stuff is thick. Okay. So what we got here? I can't tell if that's just the natural thickness of the paint, or if it has started to thicken up for some unknown reason. But regardless, it's probably all we're gonna need. So let's thin this out. Okay, that looks like a good shade. And I think we're gonna do the same layer buildup like we've been doing before. Just thin coats, heavily layered, from a pretty fairly dry brush. Okay, yeah, we are nice and thin here. That's just pooling off. We're going to start doing thin coats here and just see what happens. Let's start on the arm. Yeah. This is going to take a while. But thankfully we've got some good areas we can rotate around through. We've got the arms, we've got the face. And we can just go from one spot to the next. Ooh. One moment. Good heavens, that was a sneeze. Let's take care of that some more. Please hold. Alright, that's better. Wait, thin coats? You mean a windbreaker? I mean, I guess that's the same thing. You know, they're talking about, you know, whenever you go out, you know, snowboarding or such, they say, you know, layer up. So you want, but I think when you're snowboarding, you want more than 2 thin coats. I think you want multiple thin coats. My biggest problem is I do not know how to darken skin. Like, I don't know the color theory behind that. So, let's say I wanted to give her a bit of a tan on her, the high side of her arms, kind of a farmer's tan style. I just don't know what colors to use there. My instinct says brown, but I've done similar things to that, and it hasn't really worked out. I probably shouldn't be resting painted bits of the model on my table. But I don't have what I need to actually support this by itself. So we're just having to make do. So I'm not sure how well you can see, but we're slowly building up this flesh tone. Slowly getting rid of the gray. And it's not pooling, we're just building up layer at a time, layer at a time. To be fair, I did tell you this was going to take a while. And as long as our coats are thin enough and watered down enough, we're not going to get too bad of streaks. And as long as they're thin enough, they should dry fast enough that we can just keep adding pretty quickly. And they won't fill in the recesses too badly, like the eyes, the nose. I think actually he's got a little bit of skin right there, and then around the necklace. There we go. And back to this arm. So yeah, my biggest problem right now is just I've been able to figure out how to build up good layers of color on on things like hair and fabric, but man, flesh tones are just not going the way that I need to. Some of the tutorials I have seen or example videos really show like base coating in things like green and purple, and stuff like that, or reds or oranges, kind of these colors that you may not necessarily think to, but that's what creates the kind of the illusion of blood and muscle and veins and such below. So, I mean, this isn't bad. It's just not very dynamic. So, there's that issue. I'm gonna let that dry for a second. Okay, while that's drying, I'm gonna see if I can get a example of what I'm probably gonna be shooting for. Let's see. Hey, look, there we go. There's the backdrop. So this is that previous model that I was showing you guys, and this is the type of highlighting that I'm thinking of doing for the pants. We'll see if that can focus at all. Is that gonna go? Oh, my kingdom for a manual focus. But as you can see, those are definitely brown pants, but they are in a reddish highlight. Come on. Focus. Focus. It's very annoying. But anyway, that's the type of highlighting. I probably won't highlight it that strongly to the red, but I think that'll give a good idea. So that's what we're going to be shooting for. Okay, what do we got here? Yeah. Looks like we just need a couple more layers of flesh tone. Now, something I'm realizing is that I'm starting fresh on her right arm every time, which means that's where most of the paint is going. So we'll just see how that pans out. We'll probably just stop starting. We'll stop starting in that location. Move somewhere else. Hey, look, we've been going for an hour now. That's nice. I think I should be able to get this done in 3 hours. We'll see. I may go a little bit over if I'm close to being done. The other thing I like about doing these slightly larger models is you can actually start painting detail on like the face and such. Or previously, you just... it's nigh impossible to do that. Alrighty. Okay, this song is called Gordon Freeman Saved My Life. It's from Half-Life, or inspired by Half-Life, and it's possibly one of the funniest songs that he's done. The amount of jokes and memes in this song is, and play on words, is just amazing. Okay, yeah, now we're looking at enough layers here that we're getting past all the gray the gray base coating, but she's still pretty flat color-wise. I just want some more depth to the flesh tones, but we'll have to figure that out. And we'll touch up around her hair a little bit. Actually, going back to the hair, I think I could get away with one more layer of bright red to really try and make these highlights pop. And if this doesn't do what I want, I'll probably throw a smidge of orange in here and basically just dry brush. Because what I'm noticing is that the color's right when the paint is still wet, but as soon as the paint dries, it's just not quite the layer of level of red that I want. Also, if I'm finding some brown spots that are too brown, I can touch them up here now too. Yeah, we're probably gonna have to throw a little bit of orange in here, just to give a little touch, a little extra brightness. But we'll do that judiciously later. We'll probably use this middle palette for that. Okay. What to next? You know, I think I want to start blocking in the black. So, yeah. This is where the fun begins. Not that all this wasn't fun to begin with. But once we get the black done, that's going to be the entire model based. Then we can start putting in more highlights and such. But it's the first big milestone that I really like trying to hit, that I really like hitting, is the all base colors down. And I mean, honestly, I probably should have based everything and then started going on the highlights. But sometimes I like taking something from base to highlight, like with the hair, just like right away. Okay, now we've got this black. This is going to be interesting. So we've thinned our black down a bit. And I have yet to decide how we are going to highlight our black, because black is one of those that is kind of hard to highlight with, well, just in general. You normally need different colors to highlight black. Normally it's like a blue or a purple, which, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So right now I'm just being really careful, real precise, trying to just get each little nook and cranny without messing up my previous passes. Just go nice and slow, nice and careful. Also, if you paint a lot, I would really recommend breathe. Make sure that no part of you is falling asleep. I have a tendency of sitting on one of my legs, and that will make it fall asleep very consistently. And also, drink water, liquid, whatever you got. I got some orange juice. Speaking of, delicious orange juice. See, I'm not sure how I'm going to highlight this black, because the black, all the black here is fabric. None of it's metal. So we don't have like a gunmetal black or something like that. We are just a pure black dye, basically. Alright. We'll probably skip this song. It's amusing, but probably not to everyone's taste. Okay. This stream is now officially PG-13 for the duration of the song because it's hilarious, but is not exactly appropriate. Remember when I said that I have a couple of favorite songs of his? This has to be one of my favorites. Because there's a couple 12-year-olds in me that find this song incredibly amusing. Okay, looks like boots are done. And next up, we're just gonna do torso. Yeah, this is gonna be the hard one. Okay. There's a lot of great detail here, but putting in too many more colors is just gonna start detracting. There we go. Go. Yeah, getting the small of the back here without messing up all the hair and various other parts is probably one of the most stressful parts of this entire model. Oh boy. Okay. Breathe. Relax. Stop hunching your shoulders, my dude. Good posture is your friend. Thankfully, these little bits of these little areas, kind of these nooks and crannies, they're not seen all that much, so you don't have to put a huge amount of like care and detail into them. Black on the elbow. I'm actually impressed that I've gotten this far without having too much of any spillovers. Go. Got some front pieces there. Alrighty. We're just going to have to clear up this area with a little bit of red later. We want a clean line. Oh, I'm kind of off center, aren't I? There we go. Getting these clean lines on the edges. Super satisfying, but it's not easy. In the rhythm of machine gun spitting lead. One of the best lines he's ever written, in my opinion. Thankfully, these gloves are black, and those are the parts that I am most in danger of bumping up against from this angle. That's good. Yeah, there's some crazy detail in here. Well, not crazy detail. There is some significant detail. I may even need to switch brushes here. Let me take a look at some of the other brushes I have here. Yeah, that's a detail brush if I've ever seen one. And this is just going to help us get into these little recesses. Oh yes, I should mention the music is back to PG. There we go. Okay, this brings us back to larger brush. And now we're into gauntlets. Once the gauntlets are done, we are basically clear sailing. We are looking at just some edging and then the rest of the highlights. I can't remember if the gloves are fingerless or not, but we can paint on some flesh tones. Okay, this song actually bugs me. Why is it on the playlist? There you go. These last couple ones have been Gears of War themed. I never got into Gears of War. Was never a console guy. I was always PC, so while everyone else was playing Halo and Call of Duty and Gears of War, I was playing Age of Empires and Command and Conquer and the like. I played the first Halo on PC and very much enjoyed it, and have been very happy to see all of them come to PC. Well, a good portion of them come to PC recently. Okay, look at that. We are now almost fully blocked with color. Well, actually, we are fully blocked with color. We now just have to work on details. And I think we're going to start by edging these hip capes. And we're going to... This larger brush here works really pretty well. It's got a really... it's a little bit larger, but it has a really fine and controlled tip that I can leverage pretty well on things like this. So my current goal is just to get rid of every single piece of gray primer that I can find, and that's my current goal. Now these edges down in here are going to be a bit of a problem, so I'm actually not going to do that with this brush. But these edges I can do pretty safely. go. We are getting dangerously close to battle ready here. So if we're going Warhammer rules, 3 colors and fully painted with 3 colors, then we are basically battle ready. As soon as we get these edges in. Let's see here. What do we got? I'm having to tell myself not to hold my breath. Okay. That's looking pretty good though. I have to say, using the right brush, making sure your paint is in the right consistency is so important here. Because if your paint's too gloppy, it's not going to go where you want to. It's going to be like trying to work with putty. And you're not actually going to be working with the brush. You're going to be working with the shape of the glop that is on your brush. But if you are too wet, it's just going to run. And then also, again, if your paintbrush is too big, it's going to be hard to get on these angles. So, oops. Proper brush, proper consistency, real important. And as I'm doing all these edgings, I'm seeing where like I need to go back in, fill in some browns, fill in some reds that I just didn't quite catch my first time around. So we've got that all done, we've got all that done. Okay, now we're into this area. The only spot where this print didn't quite work out was right down here with the bottom of the hair is a bit rough. And honestly, it's a little bit hard to tell what's hair and what's cape. Excuse me, the hip cape of awesome. Oh, that goes up there. So that was the first album of Miracle of Sound, level 1. Skipping a few for language and or taste. But this guy is so ridiculously prolific with his music, it's crazy. All right, folks. Let's take a look at this. We're hour and a half in. We've got all our base coats done. I'm not seeing any more gray, really. Oh. Literally gray on the back of the gloves as soon as I'm doing that. I think that actually... Ooh, we might have a paint problem there. There may not be primer on there. I'll have to sort that out later, but we can touch that up. We've got a necklace going on that we need to sort out. But apart from this, this is basically the color palette that we're working with. And now everything else is highlights and details. So, yeah, this is a good spot to be in, I feel like. I think I'm actually going to take this thin brush and really do another pass on the flesh tone areas. Really trying to make that pop. Clean up some of these edges. And we'll go through with another layer of red to clean up any flesh tone that bled onto the hair. I found it's easier to clean up an edge like this from this angle as opposed to trying to clean up the bleed over of red onto the actual skin. Bleed over red there. There we go. I feel like the inside of the arms and stuff like that, they're not gonna be seen all that much. Like, it's really hard for me to even get there, and so they may not need as many layers or as much detail. It's all kind of an economy of time and attention and focus. I think if I take some of this rosy skin and maybe put a little bit of brown in it, and then do some real thin coats, I can maybe get some, get almost some tan looking effects. Now let's see if we can get some of this black right there. There we go. Okie dokie. So, what should we do next? You know, let's get some fun hair highlights going. Let's get some orange. We're going to mix in just a little bit of orange with this red and do a real thin layer on the hair. I think it's time for a new paper towel as well. Okay. Where are we at? Hour and a half? Yeah, we're doing pretty good. Well, that's interesting. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to clean up around this hair a little bit. If I see any gray at all, I'm going to go in, touch it up. We're starting to look at final passes. Well, maybe not final passes, but initial cleanups of mess ups and such. Well, I'll grab some of this brownish red before it fully dries. Dragon to another dead dragon, there is just one drink we need, Nord mead. This one also amuses me. If I remember correctly, this is also kind of a crowd favorite whenever he plays live. Okay. That's cleaned up a little bit. So let's, come on. Let's get some red in here. Don't need all that much. We're just gonna take some orange. And really start working that red in. And we've got kind of a nice peach color there, but I think we still need a little bit more red in there. Yeah, there we go. We don't want this too orange. Want some good water in there. Okay. Let's see if I actually know what I'm doing. We're just throwing this on the very top layers. Actually, want an initial layer of red up here. I want to see if I can get that like high kind of like sheen coat on the crown of the head with the red first. And something that can happen, and this is also kind of cool, is taking that orange can put a lighter coat down, and then you cover it with red again, and it actually makes the red more red, is oddly enough. Because the orange, if nothing else, lightens the tone. And even if it's the wrong color, then doing another layer of red over it ends up making a really light red. Because of the lack of opacity in the actual red. As I said, I really want to work on this kind of crown. You'll see this in like art and anime and stuff like that, is they'll have the bright kind of crown sheen in the hair. And back to kind of that whole concept of diegetic lighting, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm gonna let this dry real quick, and I'm gonna blow my nose again. Alright. I hope that isn't too much background noise. It's getting a little warm in here. But we'll see how this goes. Whew. In fact, I'm going to go close the door and be right back. Alright, yeah, I've got a west-facing room, and so getting on towards the afternoon, sun starts beating in, and it's a bit of a pretty warm in here, so oops, and some stuff fall off there. Okay, so I'm liking where this this orange undercoat with a red overcoat is going. So I'm actually gonna be doing this some more, kind of alternating this orange undercoat. It's pretty light, and then following up with the red, and letting that original brown undercoat really be the contrast to this thinned out red overcoat. And that should really help the hair pop. And I'm actually, we lost a lot of detail from the print down at the bottom here. And so I'm actually just putting in my own interpretation of where some of these highlights should be. And now that that's dry, because again we're using very thin paints and very thin layers, so it should dry pretty fast. Now we're going to hit this all with that red again. And we're going to keep this from getting too orange, but that's just going to make it lighten up nicely. There we go. That's some good looking hair right there. Why did I lose? There we go. There's some music back. Dropped it a little bit. Okay. So we're going to take the same principle with the hair, and we're going to paint in a little bit of orange onto these, this red panel, and the hope is that it really starts making some of these areas pop, at the very least giving it a little bit of dynamic range. Even if it's not making the most sense lighting wise, just having some color variation is just gonna help. These layers are pretty darn thin right now. We're gonna let that dry. Okay, so let's see what we're gonna do here. Okay, so let's take some of this red again. Let's see if that base coat of orange helping this red pop a little more. I think maybe. One thing that we may end up needing to do is pull out some of that purple to mix with the red to get some lowlights. So I think that's what we're going to do here. Now this is cobalt red is what this is called, which I don't consider that red. But what we can do, we can drop some red in here. And we can drop the tiniest smidge of that cobalt red, which is way more of a purple. And there we go. That's a nice darkened up red. We want this nice and thin again. We're gonna thin this out, nice and thin. And we're just gonna put some of this very thin color into these kind of recesses, and hopefully contrast with the red. And actually, now I'm looking at this, I don't think this is actually dark enough. Let's get this dark enough that this actually shows up. Again, we are going with some super thin coats here. So we want to... Oh, right. I forgot about the song. Honestly, this is not doing much color-wise. Then again... Yeah, I should probably skip to the song. Or forgot about this one. This is the most appropriate. This one, on the other hand, is very good. Okay, now at the very least, there is some highlight and low light difference in here. What's nice is that this stuff is thin enough that I can basically make a fade in between these areas. I think that's looking pretty good. Let's see. This might need a little. There we go. If nothing else, that's going to just help with the dynamic range. You know, this isn't the big showpiece of this model, but that's fine. Okay. Now, let's start getting into... Yeah. We want a little bit of red tint to these brown pants and such. Actually, I'm curious, what happens if we take some of this and starts highlighting this area, these areas? It is such a good song. Woohoo! Twitchy fingers. I'm liking the look of that. It's not exactly red, but it's a kind of a purplish red. And it's working pretty well. This is where we're kind of just throwing paint on and seeing what sticks. And very thin layers of red here. We'll see if this actually works. I'm getting the feeling that this actually won't, but it might. I think. Careful. And just get the red on the highlights.
I keep watching the world go by in bullet time. I keep pushing the pain back.
This might be too much. But in theory, if we can lighten this up with the red, then we can put another layer of brown over it that's very thin. That'll change the tone, but keep the or change the shade while keeping the lighter tone.
Just like a wild stray dog, I stumble through side streets. I fight loud.
I'll just let's thin this out. Go nice and thin. Now that we've brought this color up a bit, this will mute it down just a little bit. I don't know, we'll see. Yeah, we're keeping some of those undertones of red. Red and purple. It's hard to see. I'm assuming hard to see on the camera here. But I am getting some layer to this, which isn't bad. I don't know, we'll see. I may just do another coat of brown, redo it. That happens every now and then. But I think the main one that we're doing now is we're gonna mix this this brown and red and start trying to do a start trying to like do a building highlight. So we're gonna get some brown in here, and that brown is gonna be pretty saturated. And we're just gonna throw a little red in here, and that's not enough. Let's throw a little more red in there. There we go. And this is going to be our first highlight layer. It's going to be pretty thin. And it's going to go just kind of on the front of the pants, front of the thighs and the knees, kind of where normal wear lines are. As that's drying, we're going to pick up some more red. We're going to throw it in here. That's going to be a marginally lighter shade. Brush that off a bit. Let me put some more layers on here. And we repeat. More red, mix it in. Put some more red in this one. You can still. Not sure how well you can see, but we are slowly but surely getting the highlights of these pants up to more of a red. And this was the idea that I would do for the cape, but I wanted to try that purple stuff, and I think this is working better. So, oh, look at that. I'm basically out of red. So let's, and we were using the Dragonborn red. And we're gonna need more of this. Definitely. We're definitely gonna need more of this flat red too. Or flat brown. Some kind of crucial colors in this setup. I don't want to have to put too much water in with these after I mix them. So I'm going to make sure that they're nice and watered down early. There we go. Oh yeah, that is a nice highlighting red-brown. It's flowing nicely. I'm going to throw just a little more water in here. Thin it out. So if I wasn't trying to do as high of detail, I would definitely not be using this technique, because this technique takes a lot of time and effort. You're just putting on layer after layer. And also what's fun is after you've lightened this up a little bit, you can just use it as a little bit of a highlight piece. And we're going to put some more red in here. And we're just using our palette here to slowly build up this red. And we can just throw some more brown in there if we need to darken it. Some more red if we need to lighten it. Okay, where are we at now? Oh, we're just about 2 hours. So we're closing in on our last hour here. And pretty much what it seems like is a little goes a long ways initially, but as you start lightening it and the ratios start getting more and more even, you really need to put more red in to really make a difference. And now I'm just trying to do these very small highlights. You know what? I think this necklace, use a little bit of red. That's what we'll do for this necklace. Now I think that might be all that we actually want for the pants. I'm gonna use this small brush again. Now, whether or not Dame actually wears a red necklace, I don't know. But at least in this piece, and in this composition, this is where red would go. And this doesn't have to be a necklace, this could be kind of a scarf-like thing. Man, that little section right there does not want to take that black. Let's, I think that's because these are like high wear spots when I rest it on my workbench here. There we go. Now I'm looking at this kind of hip cape area here, and it is not a good coloration. Going with that purple, bad idea. Bad boomer. Don't do that. So we're just gonna go in. Oh right, this brown is pretty thick right now. I'm gonna add a little more water. And we're just gonna go in. And cover this all up. We can be a little heavy-handed here. We're going to clean up the edges with black anyway. We're just trying to cover up all the parts that we had not. Although we put any form of like red and brown on before. And what we're going to do is do the same technique we used on the pants, and we're going to do that on the cape here. Ugh. 2 hours, guys. Whew. Yeah, the red area is looking pretty good. That was a good combination. You know what I think I might do? Let's just get a real thin layer of red right on the knees. Make that pop as much as possible. Cool. Okay, so remember what we did? We just slowly brought up a brown into a red. Well, now we're just gonna drop this color down a little bit more. We're gonna get this nice warm red brown. There we go. And we just need to make sure to get this nice and thin. So yeah, today I am painting, but I am planning to be streaming various other things. Definitely gonna be streaming some games at some point. I don't know what yet. Probably something like Risk of Rain 2, probably. That's a fun one. Might play some ARAM on League. That's another one that I play not inconsistently. Oh, maybe something else. Get some commentary and such. But I really like painting. It's pretty relaxing. I need to do it the same way, so this is what I started with. Yeah, this is looking so much better. Oh, this song's funny. This is a Dark Souls song. It's just called You Died. For any of you who are familiar with Dark Souls, you're probably already laughing. There we go. As I said again, I can be pretty messy here because we're just going to clean up with black later. Now something I'm noticing is I'm rubbing the red off of her hair up top there, and that's mostly just because I don't have the proper things to like hold this down. But if I did, I would not be doing that. I'm actually going to try to get some red in off the side here. Actually got some. And we need some more red again. Actually have some pretty bad glints from my light here. Now I'm kind of contaminating my red here, which I probably shouldn't be doing. There we go. That's a pretty... That's definitely a lighter red, isn't it? Man. Oh, I've got natural light coming in, giving me weird glare. Alright, I think that's a good color here. So we're just going to go through again. Hit up these highlights. Oh yeah, these highlights are starting to pop. That's nice. The thing that always psychs me out is when the paint is wet, it looks really saturated and really nice, and then it dries. I'm just like, what? Okay. Need more red. We're just going to bring in a small amount of brown. Excuse me, I need to pull this out of this light so I can actually see better. Having a hard time getting the right shade with the glare. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so that's definitely the lightest that I'm doing so far. So I'm just trying to hit only the highest recesses, the highest wear spots, places where the light would actually hit. Let me take a look off camera here. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. So we're doing pretty good here. We've got most of our highlights done. So I think we're actually to the point where I want to lock in the hip cape here. And this music's a little bit loud. There we go. So we're going to lock in this hip cape, so I want to get these edge highlights down now. We got a little bit of black left, but that's all we really need. So let's start with this upper area here. So while I'm doing the outside, I want a little bit to curve up onto the top side. So that you can really see that this is being outlined. And that's just, like, it's a nice dramatic look. To have this black outline. Okay, there's that part. Can you actually see here? Ah, sort of. top layer. Time for the middle layer. And now this is where I'm trying to make sure that I have every single piece done. No gray poking out. Clean lines on all sides. Are we at level 3 already? Yeah, level 3. I think that's a great song. Okay, we're on the middle one. I really like working with black. It behaves the way that I expect and think paints should act, which is funny because it's the only paint that acts this way. But like when I started painting, I was like, why doesn't everything act the way that that black does? So a lot of what I'm doing here is actually using the edge of the brush. If I get into these big recesses, I'll use the tip. But I'm really just using the edge to kind of scrape along the side, and it gives you really clean lines, which you really want when you're doing these types of edge highlighting, or I guess this is low lighting, outlining. There we go. That's the right word. There we go. Okay, I think that's just about a wrap on the black edging. Just going through and making sure we get all the light gray areas. There we go, and now I really need to get that brush clean. Okay, so looking at this, we've actually got some problems here in the form of the boots and the gloves are not keeping their black paint very well. So I'm going to have to do a couple extra layers here. Make sure these stay black. And this is just like the final fiddly bits. Just getting in, making sure there's no gray poking out from the primer. Making sure there's nothing that's worn off that needs to be touched up. There we go. This is looking really good. Like, I could probably call this here, and it'll be fine. But, we still got a little time left, and a little details that I could probably throw in. But I think we've got some stuff that needs to dry first. So I'm just going to leave that there. And we've got this top of the head part that's a little bit of a problem. So I think what we're going to do, we're actually going to take a little bit of this highlight color that we were doing for the cape, and we're going to start touching up this hair a little bit. Because surprisingly, they're actually very similar colors. We're just gonna get this up here. Because for some reason, we've started to pick up kind of a black color where the highlights should be. It should not be going on. And what I've been finding is that you cannot layer fleshed color up too much. So I'm just gonna do a little bit more of this. So if nothing else, it's saturated. Now that this is probably dried a little bit, we're gonna throw some red. And we'll put a matte varnish on top of this. Yeah, there we go. That's that layer of level of red I'm looking for up on the crown. There we go. Get some more black on these gloves. So, the question is, how do we highlight the black? Tangent. The black on Netflix is good. Y'all should watch it if you like Pacific Rim. So now I'm looking at this, I actually may have made the brown a little bit too red, but I mean, hey, it doesn't have to be the exact same as before. So here's my thought. Hear me out. Take a little bit of this flesh color. Thank you very much, by the way, new refunds. Oh, right, yeah, that's from the song. I was like, wait a second, where was that coming from? Okay, so we're going to get some flesh tone in here. That's what we're working with. We're definitely going to get some water in here. We're going to pull a small amount of this red brown. And that was too much. I tell ya. Or was it? If we get this real thin, can we Brush this on top for a bit of a tan. Nope. Man, I do not know what the colors I need to have to darken this up. What's a little orange look like? No, that's not bad. It's kind of thin layer. Adding just a smidge of orange. To the flesh tone. Then throwing it on the top. Gives a not a terrible kind of look going on. Throw a little on the face too. Just give that sense of color. That might work. I've done worse. It's a little bit strong. Probably could have gone with a less saturated color, like even less orange. But we put a very thin layer of our normal flesh tone on top. I think we can soften it up a little bit. Yeah! Wait a second, that almost worked. Imagine that. Okay, so I was a little messy with this. That's fine, because that's some easy fixes. We just have a little bit of red around the edges. That's an easy fix. We've got a little black here. Now, I would love to run a highlight on the black, but I just don't know what to do without kind of breaking the color scheme. Because there's kind of this concept of if you're doing a 3-color thing, you have a 60-30-10 split. Now, this is probably 60. Well, the thing is, what has actually happened is that the brown is not nearly brown enough anymore, and so it's now more of like a 70-30 split between basically red and black, which is basically working. I like that. And if I were to try to highlight the black now, I would have to introduce another color probably. Something like a blue. I'm just not sure that would work super well. Although that cobalt red is kind of in that purple area. Let's thin that out and see if we can throw a little black in there. Actually, we may not even need to throw any black, just make this super thin. Do some thin coats. We'll see. We're just experimenting at this point. We got some time. We're ahead of schedule. Imagine that. And we're just gonna give a hint of highlights. on some more upward facing surfaces. I may have put that on a little bit too thick. But it gives an impression of what's going on. You know, I think that actually might do it. It has just enough purple in it that kind of has that cool color. May have overdone it on the chest area. It's on this side. Dry that off a little bit. Let's make sure this is nice and dry. And it's pretty hard to see because it is very faint, but we've got some good color here. And you know, with that, let's do a final check. I think we might be done. Well, folks, thanks for hanging out with me. We'll get a final check here. Again, I doubt this is going to focus, but we've got some good definition here. We've got some good highlights. We've got some good lowlights. The black is not flat. And what we're just going to do is, before I seal this up, I'm going to base it. Maybe get a little bit of feedback, see if the red scarf around her neck is actually what my player wants. And we'll base her. And then we'll do any like final highlights. And then we'll seal her up, and I'll get some pictures on Instagram for sure. But I'll also be cutting this into a time lapse. And I'll get it out to YouTube hopefully in the next couple days with some actual commentary. So there you go. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll let this last song play out, and then I'll end the stream. So thank you very much for hanging out with me today. I think this was a good first foray into hopefully a pretty consistent streaming schedule. So with all that being said, have an excellent rest of your day, and enjoy the rest of the music. Okay, take care, guys.